The pandemic that we are currently experiencing has changed the way Catholics are engaging with the Mass. Until recently, the faithful have been totally unable to attend Mass and have experienced what can be very legitimately called a hunger for the sacrament. Some describe that they feel spiritually starved. In light of this situation, their best way of trying to enjoy something of the sacramental life was to watch live-streamed Masses on YouTube or Facebook and to make a spiritual communion, explicitly inviting Jesus into their hearts after having engaged with the liturgy via these digital means. This is by no means a substitute for attending Mass, but is the best that many could come up with. Hello, my name is Ashwin Acharya, and today I sit down with Fr Paul Chandler, our spiritual director here at Holy Spirit Seminary, and a medieval historian, about the development of this practice, spiritual communion, where it came from, and where it might be able to take us in these current times. Fr Paul, thank you very much for sitting with me to answer these questions. My first question is, what is spiritual communion? Where did it come from?
Well, I think there's a couple of different things going on at once that has to go into the answer, Ashwin. One is that spiritual communion is a substitute for actually receiving the host when you can't do it for all kinds of different reasons, such as in times of epidemic. But spiritual communion is really the aim of the sacrament. By receiving the Lord under the form of bread and wine, we come into communion with Him. And of course it's possible to receive the sacrament without entering into communion, in which case, falls short of its ideal and its meaning.
I guess, I've been a cradle Catholic all my life, and it's only this year that I've ever made a spiritual communion. I didn't know what it was until recently. I guess an unexpected fruit that I experienced was that I was far more attentive to what I was listening to. To my surprise, I heard and experienced things that I have not heard or experienced when being at Mass.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are finding that, Ashwin. And I think for a lot of people this time, without being able to celebrate the Eucharist, has made them conscious of how important it is in their lives and how important the community that celebrates the Eucharist together is. And like all things that we repeat, there's always a danger of it becoming very routine and taken for granted.
I've also experienced, even a quick Google search revealed to me that there's really a wide variety of less famous but still recognized prayers that are probably shared out there. The prayer that seems to be the popularized prayer is that one which was written by, I think, St. Alphonsus Liguori, and I don't know when it was written, but it's quite old. And the words of St. Alphonsus's prayer seemed to make shallow my relationship with the sacrament and the community. There's a line where it says, "Although I can't receive you physically, at least come spiritually into my heart." It implies something that I don't think I agree with, and I guess my question is, are there good ways of making a spiritual communion, and are there sort of shallow, pietistic, unhelpful ways of making a spiritual communion?
That prayer of St. Alphonsus is famous for a good reason. It's a beautiful prayer, but it doesn't say everything that might be said. One of the things that's notably missing from it is that there's no sense of connection to a Eucharistic community. It's about my relationship with God. And that's fine, but it's only part of the story of a Eucharistic spirituality. The other important thing that I think is missing from that prayer is that we always celebrate the sacrament together with the Word. Since Vatican II, we've come to realise how important that listening to the God who never ceases to speak to His people. Those insights mean we can add bits perhaps to Alphonsus' prayer, which was, comes out of the devotional spirituality of his own time. I think it's perhaps worth remembering that a lot of those prayers for spiritual communion were written because actual communion was not very common, and it was really not greatly encouraged until the 20th century. Often people went a whole year without receiving communion, and their sort of antidote, if you like, for this situation was spiritual communion. We're actually encouraged to take communion frequently now. The purpose of the sacrament is to draw us into union with the Lord. It's an anticipation of the heavenly banquet. It's something we do in faith, which is a desire for the things that we do not yet have, that only God can give.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Father Paul.